Well, hello Bellingham. It is time for yet another bicycle Bellingham video. Today, once I catch my breath, we're going to talk about the brand new bicycle lanes here on Roeder Avenue along the waterfront, as well as Chesnut, going up the hill. Freshly painted and dedicated bicycle lanes. So come along with me and enjoy this pleasant ride. At the end of the ride, I'm going to give you some history of our once television station, KVOS Television, which is no more. Well, here we are on Squalicum Way. Wonderful place to ride a bicycle. It's got good bicycle lanes, and there is very, very little traffic. We're going under the Burlington Northern Railroad tracks, and we are approaching Roeder Avenue. You can see ahead. Here is the beginning of the new bicycle lane, the painted green lane. And oops, it looks like we got some broken glass, and we need to deal with that. Well, look at here. We got some broken glass. Probably an accident and where they failed to properly clean up. I like to do my civic duty. We'll take this, and since there's nothing but just grass, we just sweep it into the grass, and nobody should care if I sweep glass into the grass strip along the road. Here we go. If it's too much glass for you to sweep, or you don't have a broom, you can always call the Public Works Department, and they have a phone number for stuff like this at 360-778-7700. That's 360-778-7700. That's 24 hours a day. We ask that you please do not use 911. That's for emergencies only. So this number I gave you, and you see it at the bottom of the screen, that's where you can report broken glass on the side of the road and tell them it's a hazard to bicycles. Now that the glass is taken care of, let's move along, and we're entering the waterfront area. The first buildings you come up to, both on the right and to the left, is one of the biggest tenants. Is called Bellingham Cold Storage. A lot of food comes through here. However, most of it is by land, by truck. Very little is by boat, and virtually none is by rail, which is interesting. We're coming up to a rail crossing right here. As we carefully cross these tracks, please note, this is the only railroad spur from the Burlington Northern Main Line on your left and to the waterfront on your right. Speaking of the waterfront, if you look carefully to your right, you are looking at the source of the vast majority of our boat traffic. That's right, pleasure boats. That's the largest component of our maritime trade on this port. It's followed by fishing, boat building, the Alaska Marine Highway, and last is cargo. You need to understand, we do not have a container port, and we really do not want to have one. Container ships and container trucks will add a lot to our traffic, and it would drastically change the flavor of this waterfront. We're going through a change from an industrial waterfront, especially when Georgia Pacific's toilet paper factory was fully active. That is shut down right now, and we are transforming more to a pleasure, light industry, and community waterfront. Well, interesting to note, what's coming up ahead to your right is a new building. It is a new shipbuilding and repair facility that was constructed after the closure of Georgia Pacific. So that's an example of some light to medium industry that we're trying to get for our waterfront, but we do not want to have a full commercial world-class working waterfront. We're finding diverse uses. Example to your right, the former Georgia Pacific toilet paper warehouse. A corner of it now is a technology development center run by Bellingham Technical College. So we are engaged in conversation to find suitable uses for the waterfront, much of which was the Georgia Pacific plant. We're trying to find a mixture of uses to satisfy all of our constituents, the community, business, and those who just want to have an enjoyable waterfront. An example here is the granary building. It is being remodeled by the port, and there are tenants getting ready to move in right now. There are some new streets, right there's one of them being built going through the former Georgia Pacific campus that you see to your right. By the way, the road we're on now is a combination vehicle and bicycle lane. Please feel free to take the full lane if you do not feel it's safe to move over to the right. You are entitled to do that, and you're encouraged to do that if it's not safe to be on the far right-hand side and try to allow the cars to pass you in the same lane. We're now on Chestnut Street, going up the hill through downtown Bellingham, leaving the waterfront behind us. We're transitioning from the waterfront towards the hill, which is part of the University District, but once again, we're not yet in the dedicated bicycle lane, so please consider taking this lane, riding more than a car door's length away from the parked cars so you do not get doored. Now here we are. We're about to enter the new bicycle lane on Chesnut. We are at Railroad Avenue. This is where the depot market is. Now we're in the new bicycle lane. Cars can go into this lane only to turn right. The lane to our right is a right turn only lane. So we stay in this lane as we continue up the hill from downtown through the University District to Ellis Avenue. The building to your left with the antenna tower, that's the telephone exchange building. You might be interested to know that many of our local websites have their servers in data centers in that building to your left. Now we're chugging up the hill from State Street to Forest Street. To your left across the street is the Bellingham Community Food Co-op. We're now continuing to go up the hill from Forest Street to Garden Street, we are beginning to enter the University District for Western Washington University. Many students live in these houses we're coming up to right now. And by the way, see that island to your left? That helps protect the bicycle lane from the vehicular traffic, which is required to be left of this double white line to our left. As I was saying, this is the University District for Western Washington University, and oftentimes this can be the liveliest place to be after about 9 o'clock in the evening. Bellingham's status as a subdued excitement town pretty much ends here. Things go on all the time here while the rest of us sleep in a very subdued environment. So right now, by the way, this area, those buildings you see, used to be St. Luke's Hospital. It was a separate hospital from St. Joseph's, formed because some people did not want to be in a Catholic hospital. It got sold, unfortunately, to St. Joseph's. Now, we've reached the end of the bicycle lane. We're at the intersection of Ellis Street and Chestnut Street. The traffic signal, you see, is on Ellis Street. We're just going to gently follow this curb to the right, and we're now going to segue this video from the bike lane to KVOS television story. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the top of the hill. What a delightful, beautiful bicycle lane that we enjoyed coming up Chesnut, a wonderful character building hill. Now comes the sad part of the story. The building behind me, as you can see, the title is now Ellis Station. This building, though, back in 1953, started as the one and only television station that Bellingham ever had in its life. It was created in June of 1953 by a man by the name of Roeder and Chestnut. Mr. Jones, by the way, also founded KVOS Radio in 1928. That radio station is now the KGMI radio station. Mr. Rogan was a very optimistic man. He spent a lot of money making this place, the studios for KVOS television, but he also installed an unusually powerful television transmitter on the top of Mount Constitution on Orcas Island, with the hope that the signal would go far and wide from Vancouver, British Columbia, all the way down to Seattle, Washington. Well, that dream, unfortunately, was challenged by the terrain of hills between Bellingham and Seattle that blocked the signal from going to Seattle viewers from KVOS here in Bellingham. He had a good idea, though. This was the source for sports, school activities, city council meetings, and other news and public affairs for our community here in old little town of Bellingham. But he struggled through the years. From 1953 to about 1957, KVOS Television was an affiliate of the old Dumont television network. Unfortunately, that was short-lived. Mr. Dumont was more of an experimenter. For example, he made many improvements in cathode ray tubes. He was not a very good television network executive. So Mr. Rogan then tried to form a Canadian subsidiary of KVOS to take advantage of the fact that the signal reached into Vancouver quite strongly. But there was objections on the part of the Canadians, and that business venture did not go very far. After his attempt with the Dumont network, he did join CBS television, and that went fine for a while, until I believe sometime in the 1970s, when two icebergs met his ship ahead. One of them was objections raised by the Canadians, because the Canadians, for their cable systems, really wanted to have their own CBS affiliate. That's understandable, it's a different country. But what is not understandable is the fact that KIRO television from down in Seattle also objected. They're a bunch of whiny words, you know, wah, 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 wah. We don't want competition from Bellingham. Evidently, that wah, wah, wah from Cairo was enough to convince CBS to pull the throttle back on CBS programming that could be aired by KVOS. In the meantime, Mr. Jones sold the station to a company called Wametco in 1963. They tried their best to make a go to keep this station running as a local resource for Bellingham. After the demise of both Dumont and CBS, they did a combination of syndicated programs and the local programming, including local news. There were several companies that owned this station. After Wametco, there was Ackerley, then Clear Channel, and then finally a company by the name of OTA. In the meantime, cable systems in Canada dropped KVOS because of local competition. But what's weird is that the Federal Communications Commission asked the cable companies in Seattle to consider dropping KVOS from their lineups due to something called exclusivity. I have no idea what that means. I will have to invite you all to either go to or call the FCC and cry on their shoulders to figure out what that means. Now, OTA, the company that owned KVOS around 2011, is also owned by a man by the name of Michael Dell. He's the founder of Dell Computers. They did something really sad, and pardon me if I start choking and crying when I talk about this part of the story. In 2012, OTA, under the guidance of Michael Dell, made a decision that hurt us gravely. You see, OTA also owned another TV station down in Seattle, Washington. They made the decision to consolidate operations between KVOS and their station down in Seattle. which means that they unceremoniously and quickly shuttered the operations here and laid off all of the dedicated staff. Now this had several very serious implications for us in old little town of Bellingham. First of all, I would like to point out that although Seattle's only 100 miles down that way, and yes, I can ride my bicycle down there in one day, it is a galaxy and light years away from Bellingham in terms of culture, society, sociological, and psychology, and community and energy. It might as well be in a whole separate universe. But very important, the big loss is now there is no coverage for local school sports. There is no coverage for local school concerts and activities. There's no way for you parents to know how your children are doing in school and how your school and your community is doing. You've lost your visibility to your family, your children, your schools, your community, and your city government. It's like a veil of darkness that descends upon the city. We have lost our place in the table of the community of television. The analogy I would like to use that when a friend of mine was thrown out of his home because he was queer or gay, he was thrown out on Thanksgiving Day just before dinner, thrown out of his home. We are now like that gay youth who was thrown out of their home. We were thrown out of the home of television. We are now blind. What's happening with John's football game Saturday night at Civic Field? What's happening with Jane's musical play at the high school? Now that I am protected from the rain, let's continue with the story. With the demise of this operation, and with programs wiggling from Seattle to the transmitter high atop Mount Constitution, this demonstrates how vitally important Access Bellingham television is to this community. If you don't know it, Access Bellingham is a program that's available to us, you and me, us, the residents of the city of Bellingham. The time from 6 p.m. to midnight on cable channel 10 is our turf, our territory in the great community or table of television. It's not a TV station, it's only cable and streaming, but it is ours, it is our home. I would like to invite you all to participate. We have a wonderful community of people who are creative, make videos, and put them on Access Bellingham television. If you are interested and want to join me, we meet at 6 p.m. every Tuesday evening in the basement fireplace room of the municipal court building. Now, that is not the county courthouse. That's the municipal court building where you pay your parking tickets. It's the funny white building that used to be a church. It's across the street from Bellingham's police headquarters. We have classes. We have loaner equipment, and we have places where you can edit your program. So please join me. Help us to keep that community thriving. But that is all we have. Well, without much more to say, I would like to bid farewell. We'll see you in the next video. However, very important, if you see me out and about in town on my bicycle, of course you can see me with my beautiful colored clothing, or in the rain with my colors shining through my clear plastic clothing. Please stop me and say hi and give me any suggestions for new videos or feedback on my current videos. Hope to see you out there. Bye-bye. Oh, little town of Bellingham, for you all